Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to a rather earlier edition of Elevenses than normal. I've got some lifting and carrying, fetching to do later. My partner's basically, cut a long story short, she's going to continue to work from home despite the relaxation of the lockdown rules, and so we are moving a bit of office furniture from the old office into the flat, which will make it even more crowded than it already is, and bringing a PC back as well. So a few things to do today. I've also got a deadline for Mr. Much of Mag and the Road magazine. I've got an article I need to write. I've promised him it by this evening, so I've got to rack my brains. I'll probably be sitting in the car mentally writing the article as we go today out to fetch the furniture. So with no further ado, on with the show. What have we got for you today? Well, the rumour mill is abuzz with more baby buzz bombs. Yamaha and Honda are allegedly working on four-cylinder 250s to compete with the Kawasaki, and the government has listed what offences might be incurred if you happen to transgress while riding one of the new electric scooters which are under trial. The motorcycle test situation continues to cause frustration for trainers, and there is a statement from the Motorcycle Industry Association. French bikers are protesting against plans for pay to park biking in Paris. The Northern Irish administration agreed that wire rope barriers are dangerous for motorcyclists, and I've got a concept art motorcycle which you can decide for yourself whether it's usable or not. My own opinion is it isn't, and we'll have a quick look at a Honda as well, a little Honda sort of bicycle come moped, which I think could be the way forward. Right, anyway, so where are we? The rumour mill, yeah. Don't forget, of course, if you've got anything to say, questions, comments, suggestions for something you want me to cover on a show, do drop me a line. Yeah, okay, so on with the 250s. If you've been following the show, you probably know that I have followed the launch of Kawasaki's ZX225R. Lovely little rev monster of a 250, much underrated machines in my opinion. Word on the street is that Honda and the Yamaha are both working on competing four-cylinder 250s. The Yamaha would be supposedly called the YZF-R25, and it's likely to be launched as both a street-oriented machine, and it's quite possible that there will also be a high-spec track-orientated M variant, just as Yamaha already do with their R1M, and also Kawasaki have done with the 250. Honda too are also said to be working on a CBR 250RR. That would feature a new inline 4 engine, and again there could be an R version of that, which making it an RRR. Ridiculous, but there we go. And that machine is rumoured to be that could be launched as soon as next year. Right now, there is no official confirmation as to the arrival of either the machine or even their existence, but the rumours are coming from Indonesia, and as that's Kawasaki's target market with the ZX25R, it could indicate just where those bikes are aimed. I sadly think that we shouldn't get our hopes up too high here in the UK, because I very much doubt we'll see them over here, which is a bit of a shame. If you've ever ridden a little 254 cylinder, they're a ball of fun. That's the only thing I can say for them. Right, okay, don't forget, coming up in the show later, we are going to be talking about motorcycle tests, French bikers protesting against pay to park biking, Northern Irish administration talking about wire rope barriers and admitting that they could be a danger to motorcyclists, and more besides. But first things first, the UK trial of electric scooters has already got underway in Middlesbrough. That's the first city to actually launch these things, and they're being banks for these things are being placed in busy areas. But the government has confirmed exactly what you can be prosecuted for. Well, you can be done for careless and dangerous driving offences. Remember, you do need a licence to ride one of these. And you can also be prosecuted under the drink and drug driving laws. So they're not going to be convenient transport home from the pub late at night. The regulations allowing the trials of rental e-scooters came into force on the 4th of July, and they'd actually been announced just a few days earlier on the 30th of June. So the whole thing has been fast-tracked through, and it's designed basically to help the government assess the impact of e-scooters and whether or not they can be used safely in public spaces and in around motor traffic, particularly because they will be available to use on the roads in cycle lanes and on cycleways, and not allowed on the pavement, of course. And they're being looked at as a way of easing pressure on public transport during the pandemic. So 50 e-scooters are now available in Middlesbrough. They appeared on the Monday the 13th of July, and the scheme's in its early phase. Hubs for recharging and parking of these e-scooters have been set up in places such as the bus station, the Riverside Park, and a location called Linthorpe Village. I don't know Middlesbrough at all. The pilot is due to be extended across all 5 boroughs of the Tees Valley later this month, and the mayor, Ben Houchen, he said the trial will provide local people with a clear, cost-effective and socially distanced alternative to other forms of public transport. Okay, so, the other thing that's not permitted is that you cannot use a mobile phone whilst riding one of these. The same rules will apply as for driving. You can't use a handheld. Okay, helmets, remember, are not a legal requirement for these, although a driving license actually is. And just in case you had forgotten, it will remain illegal to use any e-scooter other than one hired from one of these rental companies. And if you do, you could get hit with a raft of charges on top of anything else that you transgressed with. Okay, so we've got some information about electric bikes, which I want to bring you. A couple of things to look at there. We'll be talking in a while also about the French bikers protesting against pay for parking, and wire rope barriers in Northern Ireland, what's going on over there. We'll come to that in a moment, but for the moment, let's go back to the driving test situation. It's been causing a lot of concern amongst training schools, as I've mentioned on several occasions. The system is supposedly up and running and open, but what's happening is that trainers are finding there is a distinct lack of actual tests available. I'll mention in a moment the problems with Mod 1 and Mod 2, but not surprisingly, various bodies have been trying to find out what's been going on. I've talked about the Driving Instructors Agency, which I'm a member earlier, but now it's the MCIA, the Motorcycle Industry Association, getting involved, and their Director of Safety and Training, Karen Cole, says that she's in regular contact with the Driving Vehicle Standards Agency, the DVSA, and the MCIA have duly released a statement outlining the current situation. And what they say is that the MCIA understands that the current reduced level of PTW test availability is causing frustration for trainers and students alike. Not half. She continues, however, given the present limitations, it is probably unrealistic to expect test numbers would quickly be back to pre-lockdown levels. We're advised by the DVSA that Module 1 capacity stands at 10 tests per day per examiner, down from 12, and the Module 2 capacity has been reduced to 5 tests from 7. Furthermore, some examiners are unable to work as they are considered high risk and are shielding dependents, so many test centres are experiencing reduced staff levels. So obviously all that is on top of a backlog of 3 months worth of cancelled tests. But the trouble is that what seems to be happening is that the available tests that do appear seem to be appearing erratically. Some centres have tests, others have none. And as I understand the booking system, and I will point out that I haven't booked bike tests for many a year, ATBs are getting preferential booking treatment depending on how many tests they booked before the pandemic. So if a centre regularly booked tests at a particular test centre, then that company gets first dibs, as it were. The problem is, of course, what about all the training schools who are trying to book tests or would normally have booked tests at centres which are closed? Because they're obviously going to have to shift their bookings to centres that are actually open. Well, it seems that they are not getting the tests that they need at these other centres. That's all well and good when everything's working properly, but right now it all seems to be a bit of a muddle. So it appears that when these ATBs try to book at a different centre, they get put to the back of the booking queue. Now, quite honestly, how anybody can run a business when they have no idea how or where they're going to get tests, I have no idea. There is a second bottleneck. As you probably know, the bike tests now consists of 3 separate stages. There's the theory and hazard perception test, which is done in a sort of a classroom, as it were, on a computer. Then there's the Module 1 motorcycle manoeuvring test, which is carried out off-road in the specially constructed centres that are scattered around the country. And then finally, the on-road element of the test, that's the sort of more traditional part of the bike test, where the examiner is out on his own machine or in a car following the trainee on a bike. Now, the problem seems to be that a lot of places are actually opening up Module 2 tests, but there are no Module 1 tests. Now, that is pretty pointless, I would have said, because unless there are trainees, test candidates who got caught between those 2 parts with a valid Module 1 test certificate but awaiting their Module 2 test, no one can move forward to take those Module 2 tests anyway, because they have to have the Module 1 before they can go for the Module 2. You can't do it the other way round. So, it seems to me that perhaps there needs to be some flexibility here. Maybe they need to get the Module 2 done and forego the tests off-road until the Module 2 has been completed. If the rider turns out to be incapable of riding the bike safely on the road, and I very much doubt many training schools would put anybody forward for a test in that state, then the examiner always has the option of abandoning the test. So there's no risk to the examiner or in fact any member of the public really, from taking a candidate who is not up to scratch out onto the road. So I feel that some flexibility is needed here. And I don't see that happening at the moment, and I don't think anybody else does either. Ms. Cole's statement continues. She says that in addition, the ATB booking system was shut down for the first time during lockdown, and some unexpected issues have arisen when it's restarted. Well, I don't know about you, but generally speaking, if I turn a computer off and then leave it for a couple of months and then turn it back on again, it works. You don't get unexpected issues with things like this when you turn them off. I'm really puzzled to understand what the unexpected issues could possibly be, unless somebody attempted some kind of a software tweak in the lockdown, thinking that would be a great time to mess around with the booking system, and that it's all gone rather wrong. And quite frankly, we've all had to deal with the 3-month lockdown, and we have all had a chance to think about how we were going to get ready to relaunch. So it's not as if the VSA didn't have time to think about this either. The whole mess is incredibly frustrating, and as I've said before, the things do need to be got back to normal, some normality, as soon as possible. The MCIA say they're in regular contact with the DVSA and doing what they can to restore test throughput, and they are confident the situation will steadily improve. Well, ask the people who are at the hard end of the coal face, as it were. One of the biggest problems of the lot is that there are people who are stuck in the middle here, the trainees rather, who have certificates that are about to expire, either a CBT certificate or a theory test certificate, or as I said, even that Module 1 test certificate. They both have they all have three have a finite lifetime, and although one could have argued that you shouldn't leave it till the last moment to take the bike test, and if the CBT or the theory test expires after 2 years, it's your own fault. It does happen, and it seems entirely unreasonable that these people should be penalised for the unavailability of the follow-on test. The government were very quick to announce an extension to MOTs on vehicles. They've also subsequently announced that driving licences will be extended to ease the pressure on the DVSA's system for renewing licenses. So it seems to me completely unreasonable that this equally important and valid legal certificate cannot also be extended. But quite frankly, and this is my advice, if you're looking to get onto two wheels right now, I would forget trying to get a big bike license. I would say get yourself a 125, get yourself your CBT, pay perhaps for some top-up training on the 125, so you're a little bit more prepared for the road than just CBT, and you're a little bit more prepared to continue your training when things finally clean up. And if you have a car license, I would think seriously about looking at one of the three-wheelers, which is legal to ride on a car license. I will talk about that in another show, because I think it's an important way forward for sort of people who need to commute but need to bust through this logjam somehow. Quite frankly, if I was running a basic training school at the moment, that's what I would be advertising people to do to get themselves onto these 125s and to think about three-wheelers. And if I was running a training school, I would seriously think about getting a three-wheeler in and doing some training on it. So, okay, there we go. That's my thinking on that particular problem. Right, so as I said, we'll talk about wire rope barriers in a minute. I've got some ideas on electric bikes as well. But first of all, what's going on over in France? Well, there's been a big demonstration in Paris. You'll probably remember that not too long ago, there were some huge protests in Germany, cities right across the country, on plans to ban motorcycles on quiet days. What happened in France was slightly different. The demonstration was all about the possibility of charging for parking, and the federation, what they're called, the Fédération Française de Motorcyclistes en Couleur, if I remember correctly, the FFMC, which basically translates as angry motorcyclists. And Saturday 18th, they organised a big demo where they wanted to make it clear to the Parisian government that motorcycles are important for commuting. Now, the reason for this is what they say is that Paris is a fairly small city. It's a population of around 2.3 million. But there are some 8 million commuters who flood into the city every day to work. Many of those live too far away to take the nice eco-green forms of transport we've been told we should be using. The ride to work on a bicycle or walk to work. And of course, public transport is not only not always an option, doesn't go everywhere that it's needed. And of course, nobody particularly is looking to be using public transport if they can avoid it right at this moment. So, as I said, on other shows, I'll have to get rid of the cat. Sorry, cat, down you go for a moment. The calls for a mass switch to pedal and foot power are fine for short journeys, but they really ignores the reality of life, that motorised transport is, for some of us, the only genuine alternative. And it also ignores the fact that motorcycles are the affordable option for the less well-off. So the FFMC argue that banning motorcycling or simply making it more expensive by charging for parking is actually leading to the potential for social exclusion and loss of jobs. So they have made what I think is a not unreasonable request to be consulted and involved in plans to transform the city traffic. That's a bit of a contrast to MAG's demands over here. They've asked for these motorcycles and powered two-wheelers generally to be included in these plans. They've also asked that the Mayor, Anne Hidalgo, who apparently promised to maintain free motorcycle parking spaces, that those promises are actually respected. But they also vowed that they will fight long and hard to be heard and to make it possible to ride motorcycles in the city and stop what they see as a witch hunt on motorcycles. Although the FEMA report on this demonstration makes a usual dubious claim that motorcycles are far more efficient than cars, which, as we should know by now, is a sweeping generalization we should stop making because it's easy to disprove. There is something rather special in France about using motorcycles, and that is the possibility of switching from a diesel-powered vehicle, and many cars, the preponderance of cars in France are still diesel, to a much cleaner petrol-driven vehicle. So any switch to a petrol engine will help clean up air quality as a short-term measure. So even though we may not be moving to a full electric situation, it's definitely something to be looked for. Okay, so right, still to come, we'll have a quick look at a couple of electric vehicles, but Northern Ireland, somewhat to our surprise, the Department for Infrastructure in Northern Ireland has accepted a representation from the Motorcycle Action Group, MAG, that wire rope barriers, whilst effective for large vehicles, pose a hazard to motorcyclists. And this came about during a meeting with MAG Northern Ireland back on the 2nd of July. Motorcycle Action Group UK's Northern Ireland representative is Martin Boyd, and the MAG UK director Ian Church. They both met with the infrastructure, procurement and road engineering officials Stephen Bradshaw and Stephen Hughes. The meeting was described as positive and enlightening for both sides. Mr. Boyd and Mr. Church, though, they gave a presentation for reasons with why motorcyclists are concerned about wire rope barriers, and in return, the DFI officials explained the regulatory issues and the difficulties associated with the alternative rigid systems that currently make it difficult for an immediate unilateral cessation of the wire rope barrier use. Nevertheless, it says they understood and accepted MAG's position. The statement said that at the end of the meeting, the DFI accepted that wire rope and steel post type crash barriers are hazardous motorcyclist safety in collision with one. They agreed to actively promote through Northern Ireland's road restraint system standards the wider use of the much safer motorcycle protection system barriers at high risk locations, which particularly hazardous to motorcyclists. They agreed to work with local universities on research projects with the goal of developing a crash barrier system that is much less harmful to motorcyclists but is still effective against twin track barriers. MAG's objective, they state, remains complete end to the use of wire rope barriers, and they're willing to work constructively, they say, to achieve that goal as soon as possible. Martin Boyd went on to say he's delighted that they had a positive meeting and that our perspective was accepted. Still much work to be done, but it's a good step forward. We look forward to continuing a constructive dialogue. Now, as it happens, when I was out in New Zealand in 2018, I got to meet and have quite a long talk with the New Zealand Transport Agency official who was directly responsible for informing motorcyclists about the issues surrounding wire rope barriers in New Zealand, where they are increasingly being installed. Now, not surprisingly, motorcyclists out there have been very, very concerned about these barriers. But what was really interesting was the stats where they have been installed, because the numbers of motorcyclists killed have gone down significantly. And this is because these barriers were put in place specifically in locations where crossover collisions had happened, and where in the past motorcyclists had frequently been the victims of these crashes. So in other words, the risk to the rider from hitting the barrier seemed to be a lot lower than the risks of being hit by a car or a van or a bus or something crossing over the median unrestrained. So There are arguments for barriers which are reliably stop cars, and if you go and see the demo videos, there are quite a few of them on wire rope and solid steel barriers, and you'll see how more effective wire rope are at deflecting high speed and heavy vehicles. So there is an issue here that the barrier has to remain effective in its main purpose, which is stopping crossover crashes. But that doesn't mean that the wire rope barrier has to be unprotected. Now, personally, I hate rope barriers too. They make me nervous when I'm riding alongside them, and I think they deserve the bacon slicer epithet they've been given. But it's worth pointing out here that some years ago in the EU, there was a vote on a proposal, was put forward by the Spanish representative, if I recall correctly, to fit compulsory motorcycle protection to all central barriers. It wouldn't matter whether they were steel or the rope ones. They have a polyurethane system which goes over the posts, over the ropes, and basically turns the barrier into as motorcycle friendly a barrier as it is possible to make. So that was probably 10 years ago. I could dig out the date if I went and looked for it. It's almost certainly in my archive of news somewhere or other. But I believe that was certainly about 10 years ago. Guess which country voted it down? Well, it was the UK. So if it hadn't been for the UK voting against an EU proposal, we could have had safe barriers right across Europe at this very moment. Right, okay, so all right, let's have a look at what's going on in terms of electric motorcycles. Have a look at this beast here. It's a Punch electric motorcycle. And the question that was posed was, how do you channel abstract art concepts once painted onto canvas into a three-dimensional rideable motorcycle? And that's the challenge the designers of the Punch electric bike have apparently set themselves. And what they've said is that they have used simple colors and simple shapes to put together something that looks unlike anything else, and have fulfilled this design brief. Now, have a close look at that seat. That looks like a torture instrument to me, and so there's nothing there to support your knees. The seat is flat and rounded. It's completely the wrong shape for sitting on, basically. The tank is one of the most crucial connections between motorcycle and rider. If you've ever ridden a scooter, you'll know how much you miss it. It's no surprise or no coincidence that bikes which have petrol under the seat still have a dummy tank in front of you, because it helps you brace yourself on the bike. So basically the thing looks pretty damn hideous, and I think it will be an uncomfortable ride as well. If you look at the picture closely, you'll notice there's no chain guard on that one, but I noticed from a later model pictured that they've actually put a chain guard on it. I was wondering when they get around to that. But that brings me rather neatly to the next thing I wanted to show you. I've lost it again. Where's it gone? Here it is. Just skip forward to that. It's a Honda A6. Now, you won't see one in a showroom in the UK because it's not on sale. But if you've been following my ramblings about electric bikes and electric scooters over the last few months, you'll know that I think many motorcycle companies are going to have to completely rethink their product lines. The evidence for a very deep recession is growing by the minute, and one thing that motorcycle companies should be very, very aware of is that sales traditionally take a hit during recession, because if we're honest, most motorcycles are not workaday bikes, and they are luxury items. Now, for most of us, they turn out to be a luxury we have to do without. And there are only two exceptions to that. That's at the budget end of the market, where suddenly powered two-wheelers become affordable transport, even essential transport. And at the top end of the market, where the people who could always afford to spend £25,000 on a top-of-the-range Ducati can continue to spend that kind of money. During the fallout from the banking crash of 2008, scooter sales in the UK went through the roof. And similarly, the big bike sales at the luxury end of the market were pretty much unaffected. But everything in the middle, the traditional sort of sports bike market, adventure tours, everything else kind of plummeted. And we're starting to see that same sort of pattern right at this moment, particularly in searches online for used motorcycles in small capacity scooters, mopeds, 125s, that kind of thing. The problem is that manufacturers are all equipped to deal with a sudden change like this in the buying demographic. I've noticed, I mentioned before, Triumph, in my mind, seems to be in a particularly difficult place. Their cheapest motorcycle is nudging £8,000. That's, not a econo buy for anyone. Everything else is north of that. The only thing they've got that's cheaper is an electric bicycle, and they've priced that at a fairly ridiculous £3,000, I think it is. Honda, however, are in a rather different position. Already in their street bike range in the UK, they have no less than 9 scooters. You can pick everything from the 110cc Vision, which is about 3,000 and a bit, up to the NC 750 designed platform bike, the Integra super scooter. And they've got a raft of other models sitting around on their production line, going to other markets. This one that you can see in front of you is called the Honda A6, and it's a kind of bicycle moped crossover. It's not available here in the UK, but it is sold in India and even in the USA. Now, what is noticeable about it? Well, first of all, it's powered by a removable electric gel pack, which gives it a top speed of around about 15 or 16 miles an hour. So it's bicycle kind of speed. Range is 37 miles, which is bicycle kind of range for a fit cyclist. So 2 hours riding at the top speed, so that should be plenty for most people. Recharges in 5 hours from a standard socket, so basically you don't need any special high performance charging equipment to pump it up again. It also weighs just 43 kilos, which makes it around about twice as heavy as a battery assisted bicycle. But you'll notice it comes with a passenger seat, and it also comes with a little lockable box on the front. And unlike the pedal assisted electric bicycles, it's not pedal assisted. There are pedals there, but it will drive entirely on the throttle. It's also got a lockable storage. Did I mention that? I can't remember. Lockable components compartment at the front, and it's got a 75 kilogram rating for carrying luggage. So it's the sort of thing that people can use to take a child to work, to school rather, while on their way to work. And apparently it's priced at under €500. That's an incredibly competitive machine, but as things go at the moment, I suspect it's illegal to use on the road over here in the UK. And again, I think it's the sort of bike that we should be looking at, along with those scooter trials. I think it's the kind of thing that we should be pushing for to get onto the road. Not everybody is capable of pedaling a assisted bike, but something like this could be a sort of halfway house between a motorcycle and a bicycle itself. Blur that line. Okay, so we've reached the end of today's show. Be back on Sunday. Hope you have enjoyed it. Don't forget, last but not least, my ride to work and my ride for fun courses are available right now. If you are interested in doing anything about your motorcycling, you can give it a shot in the arm with a survival skills style course right now. They're available weekdays, weekends, and even evenings during these long summer nights. And everything's available at a significantly discounted price at the moment. I've got my one-day training courses down to £160 to help people get back to biking. So let me know if you fancy a course. I'm here to help. If you set a reminder to come back on Sunday, we're back at the regular time of 11 o'clock, one hopes. And don't forget, if you have enjoyed the show, you can consider supporting me over at coffee.com, where you will find a shed load of better biking articles to keep you reading until the cows come home. Right, okay, that's it. So again, once again, thanks very much for tuning in. Hopefully see you again very soon. Take it easy out there and enjoy the summer month. Bye for now.